The federal marshal's badge glinted in the afternoon sun as he read Catherine Vermillion, her rights on my front porch. Her $150,000 Range Rover surrounded by FBI vehicles while she screamed about property jurisdiction and community standards. 8 hours earlier, this same woman had appeared at my gate with century-old deed forgeries demanding I surrender my entire 40-acre mountain property to her fabricated homeowners association. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just some tech worker who'd bought a mountain lodge for the views. I was exactly where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service needed me to be. If you've ever dealt with an HOA thinking they control everything within sight, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Drop a comment with your location, because I'm genuinely curious if mountain HOAs exist where you're watching from. My name is Nathan Cross, and 3 weeks ago at 42 years old, I became the owner of Elk Ridge Lodge in the Colorado Rockies. The way I acquired this property wasn't through inheritance or real estate luck, though that's what I told anyone who asked. The truth was classified. After 15 years as a federal wildlife enforcement agent, specializing in illegal exotic animal trafficking networks, I'd helped dismantle an international smuggling ring using remote mountain properties as transit points for endangered species. My testimony put 23 people in federal prison and seized $67 million in assets. The property seizure list included Elk Ridge Lodge, a 6,800 square foot timber frame mansion sitting on 40 acres of pristine wilderness, complete with helicopter pad, private lake, and underground storage facilities the traffickers had built for holding animals before transport. The lodge was extraordinary. Built in 1998 by a tech millionaire before the traffickers bought it in 2015, it featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Continental Divide, geothermal heating, a backup generator system that could run indefinitely, and security infrastructure that rivaled small military installations. The criminals had spent another $4 million upgrading everything: reinforced gates, surveillance systems, climate-controlled holding facilities they disguised as wine cellars. Day 3 of ownership. I was installing wildlife monitoring cameras when I heard the unauthorized sound of a vehicle approaching. Through my binoculars, I watched a pristine white Range Rover with vanity plates reading President 1 navigate my private access road without permission. Catherine Vermillion emerged wearing what looked like hiking gear from a fashion magazine, all cream and khaki with not a speck of actual dirt. She was probably 58, with silver blonde hair styled in that expensive way that screams, I pay someone $400 every 6 weeks. Designer sunglasses, immaculate makeup, and boots that had never seen real trail use. Behind her came 3 vehicles carrying 8 people in matching burgundy blazers with some kind of mountain crest embroidered on them. They had a professional photographer, someone in what appeared to be a ranger uniform, and several clipboard-wielding assistants. The entire procession walked past my private property nitrogen monoxide trespassing signs like they didn't exist. I met them at the main lodge entrance, still holding the trail camera I'd been programming. Catherine didn't even introduce herself first. She just started photographing my property while dictating notes to an assistant. You must be the new occupant, she finally said, making occupant sound like an infestation. I'm Catherine Vermillion, president of the Rocky Mountain Highland Estates Association. We need to discuss your compliance issues immediately. She produced an ornate leather folder containing what she claimed was an 1889 territorial land grant establishing HOA jurisdiction over all properties within a 10-mile radius of the original township. The document was impressive aged paper, fancy calligraphy, official-looking seals. It was also completely fraudulent. My 15 years analyzing forged wildlife permits had taught me to spot fake documents instantly. The language used legal terminology that didn't exist in 1889. The paper aging was artificial, and most tellingly, it referenced geological surveys that weren't conducted until the 1940s. According to this historic charter, Catherine continued, you owe $75,000 in retroactive dues for the previous owner's non-compliance, plus $8,000 monthly going forward. Additionally, all structures, improvements, and land use require architectural committee approval. The numbers were designed to shock. What caught my attention was her mention of the underground facilities. She knew about them, which meant she'd either been involved with the trafficking operation or had been monitoring this property for years. Furthermore, she said, pulling out more documents, we'll need immediate access for full property inspection. The previous owners left. Questionable installations that may violate environmental regulations. There it was. She wanted access to the underground facilities. The trafficking ring had left behind evidence holding cells, climate control systems, documents. Catherine needed to either destroy that evidence or recover something valuable the criminals had hidden. Of course, she added with a smile that never reached her eyes, if these requirements seem burdensome, the association is prepared to purchase the property directly. We could close within 5 days. Cash transaction, no questions asked. The offer was $2.8 million for property worth $6 million. This wasn't about HOA fees. This was about stealing my property to access whatever the traffickers had left behind, or to prevent discovery of her own involvement. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Ms. Vermillion, I'll need to see the association's corporate filings, tax records, proof of jurisdiction, and documentation showing I ever agreed to join your organization. Her composure cracked slightly. Mr. Cross, I don't think you understand how things work in this community. We have resources and connections that make resistance ... inadvisable. The threat was naked now. One of her entourage, a nervous-looking man, actually stepped back. The fake ranger was trying to look authoritative while avoiding my direct gaze. That night, I contacted my handler at Fish and Wildlife, Special Agent Diana Torres. She'd been the case officer on the trafficking investigation and had actually suggested this placement. Catherine Vermillion, I said. Tell me you have a file on her. We do now, Diana replied. She's been on our radar for 2 years. We couldn't prove it, but we believe she was the American contact for the trafficking ring. She'd identify remote properties, facilitate purchases through shell companies, and ensure local authorities didn't investigate unusual activity. The pattern was clear. Catherine had been using fake HOA authority to control strategic properties across Colorado, protecting trafficking operations while stealing land from anyone who discovered the truth. The next morning brought escalation. At 6 a.m., my gate intercom buzzed with the first of 12 inspectors claiming urgent environmental violations. Each was clearly another hired actor reading from a script. By noon, 3 boats were circling my private lake despite no trespassing signs. Catherine's Range Rover was parked on the public road below, and she was directing operations by phone. Day 4 brought vandalism. Someone cut my fence, slashed the tires on my truck, and spray-painted "Comply or Leave" across my garage door. My security cameras caught everything, including Catherine's distinctive vehicle parked nearby during the incident. What Catherine didn't know was that every action was being recorded by federal surveillance equipment. The Fish and Wildlife Service, FBI, and U.S. Marshals had been monitoring this property for weeks, waiting for the trafficking network's American contacts to reveal themselves. My weather stations were actually federal communications arrays. My wildlife cameras were military-grade surveillance systems. Every conversation, every threat, every illegal entry was being documented for federal prosecution. On day 7, Catherine played her final card. She arrived with 20 people, heavy equipment on trailers, and what looked like a private security team in tactical gear. The fake ranger was now claiming to be a federal marshal, complete with counterfeit credentials. "Mr. Cross," Catherine announced through a megaphone, By authority of the Rocky Mountain Highland Estates Association and federal environmental statutes, we're here to inspect and remediate violations. Refusal to comply will result in property seizure. The bulldozer started moving toward my lodge. The security team was positioning to breach my gate. Catherine was directing everything, convinced her performance would intimidate me into surrender. That's when I activated the emergency beacon that would show up on every federal screen within 100 miles as Priority 1, Federal Agent Under Attack. The helicopters arrived in 4 minutes. Not Coast Guard this time, but FBI tactical teams and U.S. Marshals, with fish and wildlife agents right behind them. They came from 3 directions simultaneously, cutting off all escape routes. The lead helicopter's loudspeaker was deafening. Federal Bureau of Investigation. All persons freeze immediately. You are under arrest for attacking a federal agent and interfering with a federal investigation. Catherine's fake security team dropped their weapons instantly. The bulldozer operator killed his engine and climbed down with hands raised. But Catherine still held a radio. Standing over documents, she was preparing to burn evidence of her involvement with the trafficking ring. "You can't do this," she screamed. "This is private property business. I have jurisdiction. I have court orders." Catherine Vermillion, the marshal's voice cut through her protests. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wildlife trafficking, racketeering, fraud, and assault on a federal agent." Her face went white as she finally understood. The new occupant wasn't a random buyer. He was federal law enforcement, and she'd walked straight into a trap. The investigation that followed exposed a network spanning 5 states. Catherine had been identifying and controlling remote properties for 15 years, facilitating the trafficking of exotic animals worth over $200 million. The fake HOA was her mechanism for controlling territory and eliminating anyone who got too curious. She received 35 years in federal prison. Our entire network collapsed property managers, fake officials, corrupt local authorities. 17 families got their stolen properties back, recovered through federal asset forfeiture. Today, Elk Ridge Lodge serves as a federal wildlife monitoring station. I still live here, but now with official U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service personnel rotating through. We monitor illegal trafficking, coordinate with international agencies, and train agents on how these networks operate. The underground facilities Catherine wanted so desperately. They're now evidence storage and an emergency wildlife rescue center, helping animals recover from trafficking before being returned to their native habitats. Your HOA Karen thinks intimidation and fake authority can control anyone. But sometimes the quiet person who just moved in is exactly who the federal government needs in that location. And sometimes justice arrives in helicopters with warrants that turn your criminal empire into federal evidence. Knowledge is power, but federal authority backed by evidence is unstoppable. Have you survived your own HOA nightmare? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might help another viewer fight back. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about ordinary people who turned out to be extraordinary. Traps for those who prey on others.